In Dragon's Dogma 2, the difference between obliterating every enemy you see and lying dead on the floor is the quality of your equipment. That's why I'll try beating the game with nothing but these hands and this cake. The rules for this no equipment challenge are very simple. I can't use weapons, armor, or rings. Core skills and augments are not equipment, so they're fine to use. I'll also ban summoning pawns for this run for an extra level of challenge. And finally, we can't use wake stones or any heal exploits to revive ourselves. If our health reaches 0, we have to reload. The challenge is complete once I trigger the final cutscene in post-game. This is a story of overconfidence, insanity, stubborn pride, and lots of patience. Our victim for this run will be none other than Shadow the Hedgehog. It took some time capturing His Majesty in DD2's character creator, but with Shadow finally complete, the ultimate lifeform starts the game off as a mage. This will make sense later. For now, I unequip my potato sack as soon as I gain control of my character and go fight the Medusa. Shadow, stop! That's equipment!
Don't touch it!
Now disarmed, Shadow sprints past Medusa to skip the encounter, then jumps off a cliff, starting our journey into the second phase of the tutorial. That's until Eureka straight up kills his Uber and we almost die. Thanks, bestie. Now in our first real fight, we get a glimpse at what our ultimate lifeform's hands are capable of. This is gonna suck. Even though our damage is abysmal, punches deal really good stagger for their speed. We can use flinches to grab opponents and throw them to their deaths. Gravity will be our friend this run. I run straight past the second pack of goblins though, not dealing with that. Shadow finally arrives at the Border Watch and is told to summon his pawn, Rouge the Bat. But this is a solo mission, so he throws his bestie into the river and goes to fulfill his destiny alone. These soldiers want us to save Arcado. I'm not doing that. Shadow instead heads to Melv and manages to avoid every enemy on the way. We enter a flashback to our first encounter with the dragon, and yes, we are wearing equipment. Kind of. This armor isn't available in-game, and we can't open our inventory to unequip or even check it out. You can count this as a rule break if you want, I don't really care. Instead, I'll run back to this cliff to skip the fight entirely. That's when Shadow realizes he accidentally left his oven on.
Damn it!
With the cutscene over, we return to our glorious naked self. Our mage was still rank 1 since we haven't been killing many enemies, but we can fix that later. For now, I did some non-combat side quests around Melv and looted the place to hell and back, finding some incredibly valuable spell tomes in the process. These books were going to be lifesavers for this run. As he explored Melv, Shadow looked out upon the cliffside and thought to the future. I still wasn't sure how I tackle all the upcoming challenges. Part of me wasn't even sure I'd complete this run at all, but we can deal with my insecurities at a later time. With the Melv picked clean, I accompanied the soldiers to Vernworth. Thanks to them, I could safely get experience and discipline points, finally ranking up our mage. The sun was beginning to set, which meant ghosts and skeletons were going to spawn soon. Since none of the guards were casters, ghosts would be a massive problem, so I quickly sped to the nearest campsite and slept till the morning. All that was left was the Cyclops encounter, so I threw an explosive barrel in his face, then triggered the torrent, cleanly killing him within a few seconds. I boarded the ox cart afterwards and got carried through the goblin ambush before riding into Vernworth. This marked the end of the game babying us. We were officially on our own now, and would have to face all our future challenges alone. The city has many valuables if you know where to look. I collected some Seeker's tokens, picked up a few fairy stones, and completed a Beggar's Tale and the Heel of History. These quests don't require combat, making them very valuable. I looted the Noble Quarter and Castle too, even making sure to steal the All-Heal Elixir from the Masquerade Hall. Then I purchased the augment of Potrapazum from rank 2 mage, which gives 30% magic resistance, before swapping over to fighter. Finally, I did 2 of the main quests, the Cage Magistrate and Deesa's Plot. You can very easily complete these without equipping the guard disguise. The Masquerade main quest seems like a roadblock, because you need to equip a mask to enter, except you don't. I just jumped onto the balcony of the Rose Chateau and walked over to the cutscene trigger point, skipping the whole section. At this point, we had over 70k gold, which shows that if you feel like you're always broke in DD2, it's quite literally a
skill issue.
Next stop was Checkpoint Rest Town, so I took a cart there and was unfortunately ambushed by Cyclops. I tried luring it off a cliff, which didn't really work, but after several minutes it got bored and lost aggro, letting me continue in the cart. Now at the town, I quickly did the Jadeite Orb quest for lots of gold and an elite tent, the best camping kit in the game. As I was about to go to the nearby Griffin Nest, I found a nobleman's cart just outside and decided to change objectives. Helping myself to the free Uber, the cart crosses through the Batal border with no issues, but if I I want to make it to the city, I have to undergo a long and perilous trek through the desert, full of dense high-level enemy spawns. I am not doing that. Instead, I made sure that I was fully inside the Batal border before hopping out and pissing off the guards. They arrested me and I was instantly teleported to the Bak Batal jail. We have just saved ourselves a lot of time. One problem, I forgot to bring a jail key, so I had to spend an obscene amount in bribes to get out. Oopsie daisy. Now significantly poorer, I once again entered pack rat mode and looted everywhere in Bak Batal, recovering a couple thousand gold. Most importantly, I now had access to the rare book merchant who sold spell tomes. She was the sole reason I decided to unlock Batal early. Fulgurous Lord is my favourite spell tome, since Levin is a reliable spell for most encounters. I also made sure to buy the Batal house with what little money I had left, then ferrystoned back to Vernworth.
The fuck?
I was about to start the monster culling main quest, but got sidetracked yet again as I saw a griffin outside the city. Once the griffin did its giant roar, I hopped on and had it fly me to its nest. When we arrived, I jumped down, grabbed the port crystal and other loot in record time, then absolutely booked it. We were now in everyone's favourite shithole, Misty Marshes. It was time to run like hell, and I used stamina curatives to maintain my sprint, skipping every enemy and heading up to the small cluster of houses. I began clambering up the cliffside until I escaped the marshes and was now in the mountains. Just a few steps away was the Sphinx's shrine, and I placed down a port crystal. I did Riddle of Eyes first and used my spell tomes to clear out a small batch of goblins inside the cave. This was enough discipline to finally get me to fighter rank 2. Then I grabbed the sealing file and returned it to the Sphinx. The next riddle was Conviction, where I gave her the sealing file again and she duplicated it for me. I have a future plan involving both sealing files, though I don't know if it'll work. Regardless, I got 2 of them now just in case. Next up was Rumination and Madness. I teleported back to Vernworth and purchased Metal from rank 2 fighter, which gives us a 30% physical damage resistance. While I was there, I got my Finder's token from the fountain. I always make sure to collect my first Seeker's token here, so I never have to remember where I got it. Normally, you can use your pawn to finish the Riddle of Madness straight away, but pawns are banned for this run. There's quite a lot of misinformation online about how this riddle works, so I'll clear some things up about it. You can solve this riddle by grabbing any random NPC and offering them to the Sphinx. They don't even have to like you at all, and it'll still work. In fact, the NPC you offered will immediately reach max affinity with you after the riddle's complete. It was simply a matter of finding my victim, and one consensual kidnapping later, the riddle was solved, giving me another port crystal. I also handed in my Finder's token while I was there for 3 fairy stones. The last riddle was Wisdom, which is impossible to solve with our current rules. You need a pawn with the name Sphinx Mother, Father, or Parent in order to complete it, so I offered up the bar lady again and intentionally got the riddle wrong.
Have you slopped for brains?
After those scathing words, the Sphinx gets ready to fly away, so Shadow quickly grabs on and we go on yet another flight. Once the Sphinx lands at her second shrine, we open the chest giving us 100k gold. We now have every reward we need from the Sphinx. She has no use for us for the rest of the run, so I teleport back to Vernworth and get told to deliver a letter to Lennart and Melv. I take the ox cart to Melv to find the villagers being assailed by a lesser dragon. Shadow runs up to the ballista and lines up his shot. 1, 2, and the dragon's dead, getting 10 Worm's Life crystals in return, which we'll need for a future main quest. If we didn't kill it here, the run was quite literally over, because we are not capable of killing dragons ourselves at all. Shadow also receives a high-level duo spear and 2 Meister skills, which he sells for big money. I had forgotten to do this earlier, so now I have to take a carriage back to the checkpoint town, and ended up getting assaulted by ogres and wolves on the way there. But these wolves were very weak to gravity, and after performing a god gamer play on the ogre, he is too. The second ogre tries to drop kick me while I'm next to the cliff, flinging himself so far that I couldn't even see him fall into the water. Now safely in town once again, I purchased the cheapest archstaff and greatsword there is at the smithy, before returning to Vernworth to hand them in. Now we have access to the warrior and sorcerer vocations. While I was tempted to level sorcerer for the constancy augment, which gives 30% knockdown resistance, we may not need it because of warrior's incredible base stats, so I make Shadow a warrior instead. Now it's time to actually complete monster culling, no distractions this time. We kill the goblins by the east, and I'm glad I waited until I unlocked warrior before doing this. These base stats are incredibly useful. Since we're nearby, I head to the Nameless Village and I'm subjected to the hardest obstacle course in all of gaming, winning the favour of the Thieves Guild. I also make sure to steal everything they own. The irony. Next up is Trevor Mine. This dungeon is a little rough, since many of the goblins throw torches. Little do they know, I can throw too. Throwing is stupidly overpowered, and I'm able to use slain bodies, barrels, and rocks to smash through encounters. Now that I've got a few more levels, my punches are a lot more effective than they used to be. It's safe to say that we've entered the cozy part of the challenge, and as you can tell by my gameplay, I'm not putting in as much effort during combat as I should be. The punching moveset has no defensive abilities, so we either have to walk out of the way or tank the hit. Warrior's base stats make the latter a much more viable option. With Trevor Mine cleared, all that's left is Half Village. Saurians are a massive pain in the ass, so Shadow devours an entire steak on his own for the buff, then starts throwing hands. That ended up being not too bad overall. So with that done, he teleports back to Vernworth to continue the main quest. Next up was an unsettling encounter where we sneak into Allard's quarters, take what we need, and get out.
Oh boy, smooching time!
I decide to take a break from the main quest to collect something I may need later on. Shadow hops on a car to Checkpoint Town yet again, only to get ambushed on the way. This playthrough has had terrible luck with ambushes, so I was very fed up by now and ditched the cart. Shadow sprinted past every enemy encounter before taking a right turn down this path, entering the ancient battleground at the end. We head straight into this fortress and sprint past all the skeletons. You might be wondering why I'm here, since I've already completed the Sphinx, but the answer is pretty simple. It's so I can get Nation's Death Knell. This isn't the only copy of the spell tome in the game though. I teleport back to Vernworth to board another ox cart, except this ox is a little bigger than average. Don't worry guys, I've got this.
Come at me, bro.
Amazingly, I didn't die, so I ran back to my house and slept all my problems away. With the station cleared, I take the car to Melv and head to the Border Watch. On the way, I find Ricardo's dead body and resurrect him out of pity. I should clarify that I'm not allowed to revive myself. NPCs are exempt from this rule. Shadow finishes off that quest, and even the provision is plight while he's here, then finally reaches his destination, Waterfall Cave. This cave is pretty large, and I don't have it memorized, so I got lost multiple times as I ran away from every enemy. Eventually I made it to the main area and looted some spell tomes, before opening this chest in the center of the room. It immediately explodes, and I run away yet again, finally escaping the cave. That chest gave me my second copy of Nation's Death Knell. The spell tome has the ability to cast Meteoron, and now I have two of them. While this book can be duplicated at the scrap shop, the fake copy lacks power and can't cast anything. We only have these two tomes to work with for the rest of the run. After that, I placed a port crystal inside the checkpoint town, which may seem unnecessary since we can take a cart here, but it will be important for post-game. It's time to progress to the next stage of the main quest, and I've got some very bad news. In order to complete Feast of Deception, we must equip a courtly tunic and trousers in order to activate the quest. There is no way around this, and you can't beat the game without doing it. So I put on my clothes and get started. Once the cutscene is complete, I can toss these foul raiments on the floor. I also threw Rouge into the ocean again. Guess we can say that the run is over, because I was forced to use equipment to progress the game, but instead we'll take the L and proceed. I can assure you that this is the only time in the game we needed to use equipment. Brant wants us to go to Batal, which I teleport to once more, but not before he gives us our third and final port crystal needed for the run. I buy the first 3 spell tomes in the bookstore, then spam rest to restock our inventory, repeating this until I had a decent amount on me. After that, it's back to the main quest where I talk to Manella, Ambrosius, then the Dragon Forge who was nearby. In his cave, I also got an extra 5 Worm's Life crystals, making a total of 15. He tells us to talk to the Oracle afterwards. Rather than walk through the whole desert to reach her, I teleport to the checkpoint town instead, pass through the border, legally this time, and safely climb down this cliff. That was the first death of the run, by the way. We get down safely, I walk up to her temple, and she tells me to fuck off to Half, which is when I realise I never activated Half's port crystal. Back to Vernworth instead. The walk from there to Half isn't that big of a deal. Shadow even fists an ogre on his way over. After talking to the village elder and activating the port crystal this time, the ruins of Grand Saurian Castle shoot out of the water. I didn't want to brave the Saurian-infested cave myself, so I kidnapped Sigurd from his home and safely escorted him to his destination. I help him take out the Saurians by holding them next to his helicopter attack. Now in the Everfull ruins, we're free of combat and receive the God's Bane from Rathias, finally reaching the Grand Sorin Castle ruins. This place has some decent loot, so I made my way back to Batal to sell it, but not before this ghoul harpy has the audacity to throw hands with the ultimate life form. Taking the other 10 Worm's Life crystals from my storage, we hand them over to Ambrosius so he can repair the God's Bane. I also help Minella arrest an assassin while I'm there, since it's literally free money. The next day, Ambrosius gives us the God's Bane, and we're off to confront Talos. You might be wondering what incredible strategy I have prepared for this man. Nothing. We can't kill this guy, and even if we could, we'd softlock the game because of this challenge run's rules. If you stop Talos at either of these death points, he'll kill 1 or 2 of the bosses for you in Unmoored World, depending on how early you defeated him, but this only triggers if you have a pawn with you. If you're playing solo and walk up to his body, nothing happens and the 2 bosses won't spawn until he activates. Since pawns are banned, we'd essentially be locked at this point of the game, unable to continue. To avoid this, we just have to leave Talos alone. There are multiple benefits to Talos spawning here. First off, if we stick close to him, none of the enemies will attack us. He also despawns every enemy in the whole area besides these harpies, making him much easier to pass through. I take my time reaching the first encampment and go to place my second paw crystal down. Never mind, we'll have to wait for Talos to finish his very enthusiastic walk before we can do anything. In the meantime, I'll play some Shadow the Hedgehog.
Where's that damn 4th Chaos Emerald? You scum! You're going down!
It turns out Talos couldn't handle how absolutely peak of a character Shadow the Hedgehog is, and immediately dies. With Talos gone, we can now place down a paw crystal, do another stock up, and walk to the mines with no issue. There we do one last bit of shopping and place down our 3rd and final paw crystal. All that's left is to fight the dragon.
Sovereign of Vermin, the ritual must not be disturbed. Let not the arisen approach. You can manage that, I trust.
Shadow, the incredibly brave hedgehog, does a clean 180 and immediately sprints away from the fight, skipping the conflict entirely and triggering the next cutscene, in which Phases summons Grigori's inbred cousin. The dragon goes in to hug his relative, but he gets too excited and accidentally burns him alive.
Thou wilt face the dragon's dogma.
Climbing aboard our 5-star Uber, Shadow crawls to the dragon's heart and impales himself with the God's Bane. This skips the dragon fight entirely, and Pathfinder shows up to tell us how naughty we've been.
Let us go home. Together.
To a world all your own.
You're a colorful bunch.
Banished to the Unmoored world, we've at last entered the final phase of this challenge. This is the part of the run I'd been dreading the most by far, but I wasn't without a plan. I make my way to the Seafloor Shrine, skipping every enemy and unlocking some brand new paw crystals when I arrive. I then teleport to Checkpoint Rest Town and parkour into Meridan's house. Do you remember the ceiling files we duplicated at the Sphinx? It's time to see if that was a worthwhile investment. Shadow tries to seal Meridan in the file, but since he's in combat with us, that's not possible. The only way to talk to him normally is by wearing the courtly clothing set, which is obviously against the rules. Since we can't trap a Meridan, I teleport to the volcanic island camp and sprint to Windwalker's home instead. Here we can find the magic Archermeister, but she tells us to fuck off. We can't go inside, so I was worried this was yet another failure. But then she magically teleported outside her house. No complaints from me here. Now that Shadow has caught his first Pokemon, it was time to see what she could do. I've gotten into arguments with this NPC in the past, and she has one-shot my level 150 plus Arisen on more than one occasion. It's safe to say that she's the strongest NPC in the whole game. With her in my inventory, I teleported to the Elven City and carried the Archermeister to the boss spawn as backup. Then I initiated the worm fight, and the guy immediately vanished. That is most unfortunate, but I've still got my Pokemon. It turns out you can't open the file while in combat, and as we saw, carrying NPCs into the boss zone doesn't work. That means this entire plan was a complete and utter failure. This was a massive blow to my motivation. We can't use an unmaking arrow to one-shot them, since you need a bow to shoot it, and Medusa requires a blade to chop off her head and use it to instantly kill the bosses. The most reliable one-shot methods in the game were out of our grasp. Dragon's Dogma just so happens to be my hyperfixation. I've dedicated all my neurodivergent brain cells to these games and all of it feels pointless when I can't even kill this stupid worm. I quit the game and considered scrapping this run entirely. I could just give up now, it's not like anyone would know. That's until I remembered. I'm Infinite the Cringe. I've beaten the first Dragon's Dogma with all my stats set to 1, then did another run after that with only parry skills, which funnily enough was way harder than 1 stat. Compared to those, was this run actually any harder? No, it wasn't. I am fully capable of conquering this challenge because this is who I am. My plan didn't work. Who cares? I'll come up with a new one. We'll be doing a lot of experimenting, so I swapped over to my main save file to make testing easier. Medusa's head. We can't cut it off ourselves because you need a slashing weapon to do so. That's fine, we'll use the ceiling file to kidnap an NPC with a slashing weapon and they'll chop it off for me. Problem solved. But we need to stun or knock down Medusa in order to do that. I tried kidnapping the Magic Archermeister again and put her to work, but a Ricochet Hunter deals so much damage that Medusa dies before she can apply stun.
I wonder if its petrifying glare could weather a boulder to the face.
Did my pawn just solve the entire challenge run? There are dozens of rocks around Medusa's lair, and after throwing 2 of them, it was enough to knock her out. This let me chop off her head easily and receive a preserved Medusa's head in return. A preserved head can use its petrifying gaze for approximately 50 seconds. This is more than enough time for all 4 bosses. Now we just need to do this in the actual challenge. Without a doubt, the hardest part of this strat would be actually reaching Medusa's cave. Thanks to Batal's dense enemy spawns and Unmoored bringing in even more threats, reaching it would not be easy with our character.
I'll take those odds.
Because of our death, Shadow was sent back to the start of Unmoored World and raced to the seafloor shrine once again. Sigurd spawns here, so I use the ceiling file to suck him up and save him for later. The Trickster Meister is here too, and I've never actually seen her fight before. If the devs have implemented a proper Trickster AI, she would make for an incredible tank. I fling her over my shoulder and teleport to back Batal, starting my trek to Medusa's lair. As it turns out, she doesn't have a combat AI, but she is insanely tanky. That's good enough for me. I carry her around as a distraction during combat and things are going pretty well, until the Lesser Dragon and Griffin nearby find me. Shadow drops her like a sack of potatoes and runs for his life. I try using the ceiling file to summon Sigurd, but yet again it refuses to work. As I'm mere meters away from Medusa's lair, I'm swarmed by knackers and succubi. The stun locking is too much for me to handle and Shadow ends up perishing in this fight. Looks like we're back at the start once more. Back to the shrine, I trap Sigurd in my bottle, then teleport to Volcanic Island camp, running to Windwalker's home once more. I pick up the Magic Archermeister, then teleport to back Batal. She will be my bodyguard. We're immediately beset upon by the Lesser Dragon outside the city. This fight is a total clusterfuck, and she even dies from its fire, so I reload my save back to the house. What happened after is a little hard to explain. Basically, the Magic Archermeister wouldn't come out of her house, so I tried reaching the cave with just Sigurd and gave up. Going back, I noticed that the Meister finally left her house, so I kidnapped her and everything seemed great so far. She was demolishing everything in our path and we even took down a golem together. To avoid the Lesser Dragon, I pulled in the gondola while she was fighting off bandits, but then I grabbed her again and noticed an enemy health bar had appeared. She had become hostile and I was forced to reload. You might remember that I have 2 files and are probably wondering why I don't use the second file to carry her around. The reason being that you can only carry 1 NPC at a time no matter how many files you have. Maybe I was overthinking everything and it would be better if I just sprinted straight there. And guess what? It works. Right until I got to Medusa's cave. In case you're unaware, Shadow the Hedgehog fans are incredibly dedicated. I reloaded to a save I managed to make at the halfway point and tried again. This time I took it slow. I made the Garm jump off the cliff and used spell times to dispatch the enemies after it. Then I summoned Sigurd to help me deal with the bandits. Once they were dead, I trapped Sigurd in the second bottle and made a save. This is so when I reload, I don't have to worry about him potentially despawning. I carry him into Medusa's lair and set him down while I grab rocks to throw. The best time to aim is when she's just finished her gaze attack, but if you can manage to get a throw in during it, that works too. After a few resets, I finally get the stun, and Sigurd chops off her head for me, and it's in preserved quality too. I was absolutely ecstatic at this point and immediately went to kill the worm in Sacred Arbor. Why isn't it working? In my panic, I end up teleporting to Volcanic Island camp and see if it'll work on the dragon, and it does. That's 1 out of 4 bosses down. Even after looking at videos of people petrifying the worm successfully, I can't get it to work. I kept trying over and over again to petrify it, but nothing happened. There's video evidence of it working within seconds, but even holding it here for all this time, it still doesn't work. I went to both of the worm spawns and they were still immune to Medusa's gaze. At this point, I had no idea what to do anymore. Something was clearly broken about my game. If Medusa's head wasn't going to kill the boss for me, does that mean I was stuck slowly punching and kicking them to death?
Can you see all of me? Walk into my mystery. Step inside and hold on for dear life. Do you remember me? After you set you free. I am all
That took 30 minutes, in case you were wondering, and don't worry, it won't be the last time I spend a comically long amount of time punching a worm to death. With that out of the way, I make a rest save just in case I die and put my Medusa head in storage so it doesn't rot. Then I head towards the ruins of Blue Moon Tower for the next boss. Skipping the skeletons and ghosts isn't much of a problem, though I do have to waste a lot of spell times getting rid of these persistent ones. Now I'm free to place a Port Crystal outside the boss arena and teleport home to do another restock, taking the Medusa head out of storage while I'm there. I didn't want it rotting while I walked to the location, which is why I left it in storage. Thankfully, this dragon can get rock hard just like the first one, completing the fight in a whopping 3 seconds, but I'm afraid our Medusa head isn't going to have any use for us from this point forward. Our final foe resides in the excavation site. Nothing has changed and he remains immune to Medusa's gaze. I held her head up to him for so long that it turned to dust in my hands. While Medusa's power may have faded, my resolve hadn't, and I reluctantly began another half-hour punching session. It's done. That's all the bosses slain, with no equipment. I felt immense relief and pride that I managed to get this far, but we aren't done yet. In Back Batal, we have to pick up our pawn, and I make sure to throw it down the dragon hole right away. On our own once more, a decorative housing item drops from the sky and begins spawning enemies in the city. Shadow the Hedgehog, brave as ever, runs past every enemy, leaving the townspeople to their fate. I make sure to zap any succubi with my spell times, however, because they will chase me to the ends of the earth. I somehow manage to kill these enemies with some Frigor spell tomes, then ambush 3 succubi with Levin. Phases rushes into the giant mob of monsters and I take the opportunity to sprint past, weaving through the goblins and punching the vase. Very thankful for cutscene immunity. Now, we have truly completed the game. There were many points where I should have given up on this run. Dragon's Dogma 2 was clearly not designed to be played this way, and as the final cutscene begins, I can't help but feel proud of what I managed to achieve. That being said, I don't think I'll be subjecting myself to anything like that again for a very long time. But with my first Dragon's Dogma 2 challenge complete, the strategies I came up with here are sure to serve me in future runs. If I were to compare how difficult the No Equipment challenge was to my other Dragon's Dogma 1 runs, I would put it between parry only and 1 stat, with parry only as the hardest. My hope with this video is that you learned something new, or at least gained a higher level of appreciation for Dragon's Dogma 2. This game is a lot more complex and in-depth than people give it credit for, and my main goal with this channel is to show people just what the Dragon's Dogma series is capable of.
Damn it!